Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar from Lumar on site speed audits. Before we get started, I just wanted to make everyone aware that we do have closed captioning available for this webinar. So you should have the closed captions icon at the bottom of the screen. If it doesn't appear, you might need to click on the more icon or the three dots first of all. From there, you can then choose to either show subtitles or view the live transcript. But we will also be sending a recording of the webinar in a few days, which will have all of the subtitles included. So look out for that as well. So my name is Andrew Levy. I head up product marketing here at Lumar, and I've got joined today by Matt Ford, who's our product management lead, and he's also the project manager for our new site speed metrics. He's going to be taking us through the content today. In terms of our agenda, I'll just cover off a few housekeeping points, and then we'll get into the main event where Matt's going to walk us through why site speed is important, the approach that we've taken to site speed metrics here at Lumar, and also give you a sneak peek of our new site speed metrics in the platform. We then should have a little bit of time at the end for some questions. To submit those questions, please do use the Q&A box that you should see at the bottom of the screen. Please do use that rather than the chat, just so that we can keep everything in one place and make sure we don't miss anything. It also just helps us make sure that we capture who's asked which questions, just in case we do run out of time today, so that we can follow up with you after the webinar. There is a short survey at the end of the webinar, which will take less than a minute to complete. So please do fill that out, as all of the feedback that you give us does help us define our future webinar program and also make improvements to these sessions as well. And finally, as I said, we will be recording this webinar, so we'll share a recording with you in the next few days, so you can review it at a later date or share it with your colleagues who maybe couldn't attend today. And as I've mentioned, that the recording will have subtitles on there as well. So just before I hand over to Matt, we just got a quick poll, which will hopefully pop up on your screen in a second. This is just to give us a bit of an understanding of the audience that we've got today. So the question is, are you currently using Lighthouse performance reporting? So as I say, that should be on your screen just now. Please do just select the option that best suits. Obviously, yes or no, or if you don't know, then that's fine as well. We'll just give it a few more seconds and then we'll get the results, and then that should help Matt understand a little bit more about the audience that we've got here today for the demo a bit later on. Okay, so it looks like we've got most responses in. So let's just share those results. So hopefully you should be able to see the results of that on the screen. Looking like obviously a majority of people are using Lighthouse performance reporting, a few that aren't and a few that don't know. So Matt, hopefully that helps a little bit for yourself. And then what we'll do is move forward, and I'll hand you over to Matt, who's going to talk us through the content.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everybody. That's definitely helpful information to know, just so I know what level to explain, like what are we doing, what is Lighthouse reporting, how we're using it. But first, we just wanted to quickly cover off why are we talking about this? Why is this important? We've been talking about this a lot over the past few months. We've had webinars specifically covering in more detail. Why is this important? But essentially, website technical health is something that we've been talking about. And it's this combination of we are constantly pushing things to your website. So you're driving traffic to the website with organic traffic, with paid acquisition, whatever. But the health of the actual website when you get to it is important in ensuring that you've got a high performing website, because if your site speed is bad, if your internal linking isn't working properly, all of these elements of technical health, it means that you can't perform as well, you can't convert as well, you can't provide the best experience for that traffic that gets there. And site speed is an important part of that. So why is site speed specifically important? There's kind of three main things. One is there's a direct correlation between how fast your site is and conversion rates and revenue. So the faster your site, the better your conversion rates are in general. And conversion rates obviously have a direct impact on revenue if your site is a revenue driving site. So the longer the page takes to load, the more likely it is someone's going to go elsewhere. Everyone's had that experience of you're trying to access something, it takes too long to load, you can't be bothered, you just go back to maybe that search results page that you originally were looking on, and you go to the next thing down, and they get your business. Second point is specifically for SEOs, there's been a lot of talk around page experience being a ranking factor. So Google have acknowledged that this is something that they take into account within their rankings, and just the kind of general trend within the SEO industry towards providing a good experience is generally perceived by Google as a good thing. So this is definitely in the interest of SEOs in terms of just improving that search performance. And the final thing with site speed is costs. So slower sites cost more to host that content. If you're an enormous site and you've got a kind of excessive speed, then when you scale that out up to the number of pages that you have, any kind of extra millisecond can have a relatively significant impact on your hosting costs, as well as bandwidth charges from your service providers. So those are kind of core reasons why you would want to focus on site speed at all. So as I mentioned, you increase your conversion rates. 2% increase in conversion rates by every 1 second of improved load time, studies have found, and there's 24% lower abandonment on sites that are meeting those core Web Vitals thresholds. So very important. It's quite easy to make those correlations in the data. And from the interviews that we've been doing in the run-up to releasing this functionality, one of the things that stood out was one of our clients mentioned, if you're going to listen to anything, it's the fact that slow web pages lose us money and they cost us money. It's a complex space, but it's relatively simple what the impact is. Now, before we talk about the approach in terms of what exactly we're trying to do and how we're doing it, it's worth thinking about. You might have joined this webinar out of interest. It might not be your direct responsibility per se, or maybe you're here because it's become your responsibility. So who is responsible for site speed? It's a bit of a tricky question, depends on your organization, but it really is distributed responsibility. It sits across multiple teams, and multiple teams have kind of different interests, but also different bits that they touch on. So the SEO, technical SEO side of things, you're obviously optimizing for your page experience, ranking factors. Crawl budget is another thing that can be influenced by a small site. From the UX or the conversion rate optimization performance team side of things, you're looking at maximum conversions, specifically targeting that improvement in conversion rates. But then you've got on the development side of things, the engineering side, front-end developers are generally going to be ensuring that the front end is fast. That's just going to be kind of part of their process, their role description, making sure that the JavaScript or the CSS or all of that's loading as fast as possible. The platform team is going to be ensuring the platform's fast. DevOps is kind of the final leg where they're doing whatever they can without changing application code. So it's looking at CDN things, edge caching. And then there's also on the marketing content side of things, you've got your CMS performance. So maybe you're injecting things via your CMS, or there's images that are hosted via your CMS that have an impact, front-end scripts that aren't controlled by developers. So there are a bunch of people involved and everybody has different touch points. So it's worth just bearing that in mind and also making some connections between the different team members to understand when you're identifying these issues, like what can you do and what do you have to pass on and which team do you have to pass it on to? So in terms of our approach, we identified through a bunch of interviews that there's kind of 4 main things that were sticking out. One's poor understanding of site speed, very technical, very poorly understood across the board in terms of what are the issues and also how to fix them. actionable data, many tools are either like maybe more developer centric and too technical to even really understand what they're telling you, or they don't provide actionable details. So if you've used something like Crux or forgot the other one off the top of my head, but these kind of more high-level benchmark tools that give you a score and give you a sense of how you're doing, but not necessarily the details to be able to write a ticket and say, do this thing because this will impact this score. Prioritization is always a challenge, but it can be difficult to make that business case when these things are poorly understood. Also, things like refactoring your JavaScript libraries are often not deemed as exciting as that new shiny feature that you're working on releasing, for example. So prioritization can be a challenge. And also measuring the impact. So correlating that impact, the thing that you did with the impact of the thing you did. So the revenue or the conversion rate improvements requires you to have A, the right tools, but B, all of that data in the right place to start making those correlations. So these are the kind of core things that we are looking at approaching, attacking. So with the poor understanding, we've got a simple interface with clear descriptions on what the issues are, how to fix them. I'll show you exactly what that looks like in the platform. We're focusing on actionable data, so not only high-level scores, but the ability to drill down into the granular details, so that you're not just writing a ticket for your developer saying, improve this score or this specific speed KPI, but giving them the details on this is the specific resource that I think has this problem. So I would like you to do this in the ticket because it will have X impact. So something that's an actionable ticket that can actually be picked up and implemented. Prioritization is kind of the bread and butter of our platform, with the ability to filter and sort and segment, and combine different data sources in one place to help build that business case and provide the details for those acceptance criteria for your tickets. And finally, on the measuring impact, we're looking at combining the performance trends, so with lab data and field data. I'll explain what those are in a second. But combining your speed performance data with conversion data in one place, conversion data is also something we'll be pulling into the platform, can help you more easily and simply make those connections. So before we jump in, I saw the question in the chat, what is Lighthouse? And I'll take over my screen share to just explain what that is quickly before we jump into it. So Lighthouse is a tool provided by Google that just does speed performance checks on a page level. So you can actually see this in your, if you hit inspect in Chrome DevTools, there will be a Lighthouse section and you can run it on a page, and it will basically give you a score broken down into the different types of speed measurements, and it will give you a sense of how is this page performing and what are all the issues on this page. So broken down into your fails, and it will give you a load of information. You kind of have to just click through all of this and identify what are the things on this page that are broken. Now, this is lab data. So this is a specific environment, and you can see at the bottom it says that this is emulated Moto G power using Lighthouse 11.5 with a specific throttling. It's always a consistent environment. It's not reflective of real users' experience, but it is a consistent measure of how that speed is performing. This page is performing in terms of speed. So there are other tools that are called field data. So Chrome UX Report provides actual speed performance of real users. So over time, it's like an aggregation of this is how your site is performing for real users over the past period. The two of those things together are valuable. And We are intending to pull in Crux eventually into the platform, but the first version of this is Lighthouse reporting at scale within Lumar. So jumping into the platform, what we're doing is we are running Lighthouse audits against every single page that we crawl. So we've introduced a new crawl type. So if you hear new project and you've got the site speed part of your account, then you'll have the option of whether to run an SEO crawl or a site speed crawl. Hit site speed, and you can then configure this with kind of all the flexibility that you would expect from the Lumar platform. So specifying exactly what is crawled and what is not crawled. So you can crawl only the things that are important to you. And once that has been crawled, we are essentially running this site speed audit across every single URL that we found. So when you're using Lighthouse in your browser, this is one page at a time. It's helpful to get a sense of that page, but if you've got a large site, it's difficult to identify across the whole site what are the biggest opportunities, what are the low-hanging fruit, what are the resources that are draining the most potential from your website health. So we run this against every single URL, and you'll have a bunch of reporting to help make sense of it. So the first thing you'll see is the overview dashboard. And anyone that's familiar with our health score reporting in the SEO or the accessibility side of things, you'll be familiar with this same structure of moving from the highest possible level. This is a sense of how is my site doing in terms of speed. And we've got a 39 out of 100. It's got some room for improvement. This is broken down into subcategory scores, and you can see this is first contentful paint, FCP, LCP, TBT, cumulative layout shift, and speed index, and that aligns with all of the specific metrics that you get on the page level. But we've devised scores for those as well, so you can understand how am I doing in all of these areas that are contributing to my site speed. And this is designed not only to give you a sense of where is my site at, tracking that improvement over time, maybe reporting on that, but also trying to guide you to the right place to focus your attention. So looking at this, my highest score is CLS, 72 out of 100. My lowest score is total blocking time and speed index and LCP. So maybe these are the areas I want to focus my attention. I want to focus on the low-hanging fruit, the biggest opportunities across the site. And each of those will have their own dashboards, which will give you more information and will show you the errors that are specifically impacting those scores. But before I dive into that, I'll just finish off this overview. And there are additional things that we're just trying to help give this bigger picture of what does the site look like. Beyond the score, we've got each of these is an individual speed metric. But again, it's an aggregation of every single page that we crawled. This is the average FCP for all of those pages across the site. So 2.36 seconds, 63 seconds. For LCP, it's an average across all of the pages, 6.03 seconds. So when we're looking at specific issues, and each issue will tell you either the savings in size or the savings in time, depending on what type of issue it is. It can help contextualize. Well, if this is having this big an impact, and if it's a bit clearer if I jump into a specific report. So if I go into first contentful paint, you can see this is saving on average 34.34 seconds. And my average FCP is 2.6. So if each of these pages has an average savings of 0.34, then it can help you understand like where can I save that those seconds or those milliseconds to improve this score and help make decisions on what should I focus on first. So these are the KPIs over time, and these bars just represent each individual crawl. that you've run. And finally, there's a distribution for each of these, a trend distribution where we've bucketed pages into slow, moderate, and fast, or the relevant terms for the KPI. So you can see FCP is about half and half moderate and slow pages. LCP is a bit worse. There's the majority slow pages for their LCP. TBT, you can see 100% have got slow TBT. CLS is the best performing on the site. But again, this can just help you figure out, where do I focus my attention? Clearly, it's these three that I need to understand. How can I improve? So how do you go about improving them? This top right-hand section will show you errors across all of the reports that we have across all of the different categories. So you can see things like we've got 16 render blocking resources, which on average are contributing, have savings of 0.34 seconds. There's one third-party resources that's not been deferred, which is contributing a potential savings of 3 seconds. So that's quite a big opportunity there. And if you click into it, you'll find the details of what is that specific thing. And this is our embedded YouTube player on this example URL. So that's definitely something worth looking in if you can potentially save 3 seconds on deferring that resource. And for each of those areas, you'll have the same layout. So imagine we want to improve our first contentful paint score. We'll click into this and we'll get a sense of how am I doing in terms of first contentful paint. These errors specifically are focusing on only things that influence the first contentful paint. And again, these are aggregated. We've chosen to focus on not only pages with an issue. So the SEO reporting you might be familiar with is normally pages with X issue. And this number will be the number of pages. We do have those reports, and you can find those. So pages with multiple redirects, pages with this problem. But it's actually more efficient to find the low-hanging fruit when you're looking at the specific resources or the things themselves that are causing the problems. So we've chosen this aggregated approach, which if we click into render blocking resources, you'll see what are those exact resources that are failing this audit. They are considered render blocking over a threshold that is deemed to be bad. And we're grouping those together to say this specific resource here, this CSS file, on average is wasting 0.7 seconds. Now this sits on 2,000 URLs across the site. And that means there's a total savings. If you multiply this by the URL count, there's a total savings of 1,675 seconds across the board. So by aggregating this together, you can quickly get a sense of this seems like a big issue because it's affecting more pages and if we sort by this is one of the top issues. So for render blocking resources, if I were to look into this as my main issue of choice, I first need to know, what is it? What do I do with it? How do I filter this in a meaningful way? And how can I save that information for later? So we've got this help section, which we've designed to solve that first pain point, which is that site speed issues are not very well understood. And they take a bit of doing to understand what even is this problem? How do I fix it? So we'll give you context on what is this report. It will tell you how do we determine what fits in this report. What's the context? So render blocking resources are files, CSS or JavaScript that need to be loaded before they can display the content. What issues can this cause? It can delay the rendering of page content. So it needs to wait for them to download and process before displaying the visible parts of the page. That's the problem that it causes. It's blocking the visible parts of the page from being displayed. How do you fix it? These are some ways that you can think about fixing it, and we've provided some links to further resources if you want to understand like what is deferring. And this is from web.dev to just give you a sense of what is that. This is the Chrome's Lighthouse information, which will give you a sense of what specifically are the details of this problem if you haven't got enough from here. And also, what is the positive impact? Why would I do this? This is all information that you can take to understand what the problem is, but also potentially drop it into that ticket that you end up creating to help provide context to the person on the other end. So I now know what this render blocking resources issue is. This list is going to show me all of those specific resources. So these are all the render blocking resources. Now I want to probably filter this down to make it a bit more meaningful, choose the right ones to work on first. So you can see the average wasted seconds in this column. Maybe I don't want to focus on the ones that aren't wasting as much time. I want to focus on the biggest opportunities. Maybe I also want to just focus on URL counts. So I could filter this to URL count is greater than, let's say, 100. So I filter this down to the pages that, the resources that are on the most pages. We've also pulled through GSE clicks and page views. So another thing you might want to do is focus only on the pages that, the resources on pages that have traffic, that are affecting real users. That's another way of prioritizing the most impactful thing first, and then you focus on the pages that have less traffic afterwards because they're going to have lesser implications for your conversion rates and potential costs. Another thing to look at is what are these resources as well? So I can see WP stands for WordPress. So a lot of these seem to be WordPress related. And as an SEO, I might have access to my WordPress platform. And that's something that I can do myself. So I might want to filter this down to element contains /WP to only have a look at the specific resources that I can do something about. So these are all of the resources to do with WordPress. If I then open the task manager, hit add new task, I can save this task. I can give it a priority. I can give it a title and save it for later. And this will then sit in the list of tasks in my task manager. So I can see WordPress render blocking resources. I also did another, which is just filtering out what's the inverse of that. So these are all the things that aren't WordPress related. So maybe these are things that I need a developer to investigate because I can't do it myself. So we've now broken this down into some manageable chunks by prioritizing them effectively by using the wasted seconds and the URL counts and the potential impact based on the traffic on the site. So to take you through another quick example, let's just take you back to the overview again. I want to focus on my LCP score. It's 27 out of 100. It's not the best. Let's click into this, see how we can improve it. So my average LCP is 6 seconds. Now the LCP reports aren't, they're actually provided in size savings. This is just how the Axe library, the Lighthouse library presents this information. And we'll be providing additional trends or charts to demonstrate the correct metrics. But again, you can see what are the issues here that are contributing the biggest savings in terms of kilobytes in this fact. And the number of those resources as well. So it looks to me like images within efficient formats, 3,200 examples of that. That seems like a significant amount of that issue across the site. So clicking into this, again, I'll have the list of all of those specific images. If I want to see what this image is, so this top image here, stick that in there, and you can see this is a specific image from our website. This element as well, you could inspect the specific page. So if you want to see the page that this is on, I have the example URL, open that page, hit inspect, and you'll be able to see where exactly on this page does that sit. So you can find the specific bit. But again, it's a question of, okay, so I've got 3,200, 3,200 images that have this problem. They're inefficient formats. How can I whittle this down? So we can look at the average savings, and maybe we want to sort this by the biggest savings first. This is 3,200 kilobytes for this specific image, but it only sits on one URL. So maybe that's not the most effective way of breaking this down. So looking at the total savings, so this is the average savings, well, the total number of kilobyte savings, taking into account all of the URLs that it sits on. So again, this is the same number because we've only got one URL. We've provided an extra metric here, which is taking into account the page views and looking at the total savings based on the total number of kilobytes times by page views. If we're thinking about hosting costs, server costs, this total number of the amount of times that's actually been loaded on a page is going to influence the cost to your site. So this might actually be the best way of breaking this down and sorting by the total savings in terms of this kilobytes times page views. So you can see this top one, this is the specific resource, this crawler image PNG. This saves 3 million kilobytes, which I looked up earlier. It's about 1.5 gigabytes, even though it only sits on 4 URLs. So even despite only being on 4 URLs, this might be the biggest saving that you can do in terms of your costs. If I want to dive into that specific issue a bit deeper, click into it. This will give me that unique issues opportunity details page. So I'll give you information on that, the problem itself. It'll give you a description to say that these image formats provide better compression than a PNG, which this is, which means faster downloads and less data consumption. So I need to convert this into a better format for better compression, and I can save potentially this much in size, in file size. And if I want to see all of those instances, I hit opportunity instances, you'll see every example of this across your site with the URLs for each of them. So this can then be exported, attached to a ticket, and that ticket that can then say, for this image, which appears on these pages, we need to improve the image format to provide better compression, which can save this much wasted kilobytes, which is influencing not only our costs, but also the speed of the page. So that's helping you to provide that business case to get these things prioritized and get them actioned. So finally, I realize I'm whizzing through all of this, speed of light. What if you want to look at this from a page level approach instead of the issues? Maybe you work specifically on the home page and you just want to know what are all the issues on that home page. You could do that via the Lighthouse extension. We assume you probably want to do it within the same platform as all of the rest of the information, and with the kind of enhanced information that we've added in through the different sources. So we still have page level reports. So all of these reports, you can see these will show you all of the pages that have each individual issue. So those all are available. So if I wanted to see pages displaying invisible text, there's 129 of those. What are those pages? And this will show you all of those pages and the information on them. If I wanted to see just the home page, as I said, any blue link in the platform will take you to the URL details page. which is another view which will show you the overall score for that page. So that would be the same as the Lighthouse score. The metrics for each of those, again, color-coded and gives you an indication of whether this is a warning, a failure, or a pass. Some information on the potential savings on this page, and also engagement. So this is where looking at things like visits bounce rates, potential impact on bounce rates by site speed, the pages per visit. This is where we'll also pull in some conversion rate information once that's available. What are the conversion rates for this page? So you can start understanding what's the potential to improve. And we also provide some information on the specific issues on that page itself. So here's a screenshot of the page as we crawled it. So this is what it looked like at the time of the crawl. If you've got a particularly dynamic site, this can be helpful in understanding what was on that page at that time. And here you'll see these are all of the different issues that you have on the page. So on the overview, you can see this broken down into past, failed, warning, and info means that they need a manual review. This gives you an a glance view of the type of issues, but you can drill down into each of them specifically and say, if I want to look at reduce unused CSS, potential savings of 89 kilobytes across all of the CSS files. These are the individual CSS files. And we are pulling that information again from the other sources. So you can see that CSS file has, this page has this many page views, this many potential savings. And if we wanted to see the kilobytes times page views, this is the potential savings of this specific asset across the whole site based on, well, on this page, based on the total number of page views. So again, this is the potential savings that you can apply to your ticket to help make that case to get it picked up. So I'm aware that that was a very speedy run through and there's not enough time to go into absolutely everything. So this was the high level run through. But if you'd like more information, a bespoke demo for some further details, we can book that in for a deeper dive and start looking at what this would look like for your site with your team. So I'll pass back to Andrew for another poll.
Great, thank you, Matt. Let me just quickly bring up the deck again. Yeah, so as Matt said, that was a very high level overview of the platform and what we're doing from a site speed metrics point of view. If you would like to get a more specific demo, as Matt said, you should have a poll up on the screen at the moment. So just let us know if you just click on whether you yes, no, or maybe later. We will get all of that information back once the webinar is finished. So we'll be able to reach out to you and organize for those of you that do want to get a demo. We'll just give that a couple of minutes just for people to be able to finish that off. Looks like most people have now filled that in. Thank you very much. A couple more just as I say that. Obviously, we'll reach out after the webinar as well once we show you the recording. So if you don't get a chance to fill in the poll here, then you can obviously let us know just by replying. We'll get that sorted for you as well. Okay, so let me just get that out of the way. So yeah, so we have had a few questions in. There's a couple that I've just sort of pinged a response to that we just need to get a little bit more information from. So we'll follow up with you after the webinar for that. There's one that I think has come in from a customer around whether site speed metrics is available in Monitor and Protect. The answer is yes, we are working on that as part of the development. For those that aren't aware, Lumar Monitor gives you customizable alerts and dashboards so you can be notified as soon as an issue is identified, either via email, Slack, or Teams. And Lumar Protect provides QA testing So you can either use that for regular template testing on staging or dev sites, or fully automate QA testing with CI/CD integration. So the site speed metrics will be available in both monitor and protect, as well as analyze, which is what Matt's shown you today. And just obviously to let you know, as we've said, we're sort of finalizing the development now, but we expect it to be available in the next few weeks during May. So as I say, there were a couple of other questions, but I just want to get a little bit more information from the team on to be able to give you a fuller answer for those. So we'll come back to you after the webinar with some answers to that.
There was I just noticed one question in the Q&A that we missed. Where is this site data gathered? Nothing needs to be added to the site for this. So to clarify, you don't need to install anything onto your website to have this data. We essentially crawl every single page. And as we crawl that page, we make a request. We send that information off to Lighthouse audit analysis, which pulls that information back with the specific Lighthouse settings, that specific lab environment details, that consistent setup that I mentioned at the start, and then it returns those results. So you could literally do this right now on your site just by configuring a crawl, saying what you want it to crawl, the scope of the information. So starting at this point, and only crawl up to, say, the first 1,000 pages, and it will generate that data. So nothing else needs to be done. There is no installation. It's all cloud-based, working on your domain. And I can see from Llama, so INP isn't part of Lighthouse, since it's not a lab metric. The TBT is a close kind of analog for it in terms of lab data, so that can be used. But when we look at including Crux data, INP will be included in that. So we hope to have that included as well. And we always intend to add all of our additional data sources to Looker Studio. So I'd imagine this would also be added in there as soon as possible.
Great, thank you, Matt. As I said, there were a couple of other questions come through. I know Rodrigo had a question, and there's a couple of others as well. But we're just going to get a little bit more information to be able to come back to you on those, because we're up against time at the moment. So we'll follow up after those. If you did want to access some more content, there's a couple of things on our website. We did a webinar recently around site speed and SEO, what's now and what's new. So that gives you a little bit more information about what's coming in site speed for SEOs specifically. And we've also got a blog post around website speed's impact on SEO as well, which might be useful. Our next webinar is going to be on the 16th of May, 2024, which is actually World Accessibility Day. So we're going to be hosting a webinar, especially about accessibility on that session. So yeah, visit the website, have a look at what's coming up, and you can register for those. So yeah, again, Matt, thank you very much for talking us through the content today. Thank you to everyone that's joined us today. Like I said, we will follow up with a recording of the webinar in the next few days, and we'll come back to those of you whose questions we haven't been able to answer just yet. We'll come back to you with answers to those as soon as we can as well. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, and have a good rest of the day. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.